Hello, my name is Anna Devenish. I'm a social scientist with a PhD in public policy from Oregon State University. I represent a research team at the Federal Science Center for Physical Culture and Sport in Moscow, Russia. We want to thank the Partnership for Clean Competition for the great opportunity to network and share research. And today we would like to present findings of a survey that we conducted in 2019 and 2020, measuring perceptions of doping in sport and perceptions of anti-doping measures held by Russian elite athletes. We used the river sampling technique and had 128 responses. This sample is not representative of all elite athletes. Rather, these findings serve an exploratory goal, and now I'd like to share some descriptive statistics with you. The first diagram shows the attitudes of athletes toward doping. Only 4% of the respondents think that the victory of Russian athletes depends on the use of doping. However, the much larger proportion of the respondents, 20%, think that health consequences caused by doping are exaggerated. And the implications here are that the educational programs should perhaps spend more time explaining why and how doping leads to dire health consequences. The graph on the left shows the perceptions of existing sanctions for anti-doping rule violations. 51% of the respondents think that existing sanctions are adequate, and we believe that if athletes evaluate sanctions as fair, they're more likely to comply with anti-doping rules. 14% of the respondents think that the existing sanctions, in fact, are insufficient and stricter sanctions should be implemented. In opposite, 16% think that the sanctions are too harsh. The graph on the right demonstrates what happens if athletes find out that their peers resort to doping. You can see that 58% of the respondents would tell their coach, 19% will inform the personnel of the Russian anti-doping agency, while 13% will not tell anyone. On the graph on the left, you can see some statistics related to the knowledge level of existing anti-doping rules. And we want to highlight that 44% of the respondents consider use or attempted use by an athlete of a prohibited substance or a prohibited method as ADRV. And only 22% associate whereabouts failure with anti-doping rule violations. Our conclusion is that anti-doping literacy programs should pay more attention to those ADRVs that are least known, especially related to the availability of athletes for testing. In terms of sources of information about prohibited substances, athletes more often ask their coach, doctors, and search on the internet. The phone app Anti-Doping Pro is not popular among the respondents. Only 12% mentioned it. And at the age of digitization, in our opinion, this source of information should be promoted for the larger audience, especially among young athletes. Another interesting finding here is that while most of the respondents, 62%, thought that educational programs increased their anti-doping literacy, 41% of those who have not participated in such programs are willing to do so, which means that a large proportion of athletes were ignored, and there should be more efforts to reach out to more potential participants. We asked the respondents whether they think that Russian athletes are tested more often than their foreign counterparts, and 58% said they believe so, which means that those respondents might view existing testing regime as not completely just from the procedural and or distributive standpoint. In terms of perceived reasons for engaging in doping, the respondents frequently mentioned the desire to win at all costs, poor fitness of athletes, inadequate supervision by coaches, doctors, and the Russian anti-doping agency. And as for the next steps, we have developed a research proposal to examine legitimacy perceptions of the anti-doping system expressed by Russian athletes of different levels and their support personnel. Scholars have argued that strong perception of legitimacy contributes to higher levels of compliance with the rules. To conduct the study, we will draw on the propositions of the sport drug control model proposed by Donovan et al. And we'll use qualitative data obtained through focus groups and interviews, and the results of the research will be offered to anti-doping organizations to help identify areas of the anti-doping system that are perceived as less legitimate. And this research proposal enlisted support of the International University Sports Federation. This is all we have. Thank you very much for your attention.